what is Microsoft SharePoint 2010? I think currently everyone is muted, but if you have any questions along the way, or if you can't hear me or have any problems, feel free to put a message in the chat box, and then we can make sure to deal with anything that comes up from there. So for today's webinar, I'm Terry Simpson, a solution architect here at Susky Tech, and here's some of my contact information, and we'll bring this up again at the end. In case you have any questions on anything that we covered today, make sure to jot down maybe the number and email address, and feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions. So today we're going to give you a little bit of an introduction into SharePoint from kind of the ground level. We'll talk a little bit about lists, libraries, the search interface, and how you interact and find things within the site, document versioning, a little bit of collaboration, and if we have enough time, we'll get into security and permissions. So why use SharePoint? That's kind of the overarching question that many folks come up with when we talk about the SharePoint environment and what we're doing with it. And individuals within an organization interact with each other and collaborate all the time. And if we would have talked 5-10 years ago, you would have talked, when you talk about Microsoft products, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and how you interact with your colleagues with those documents. Well, what SharePoint allows you to do is have an environment in which you can collaborate much more efficiently than you could before. So imagine you're in your world and you have all your colleagues around you, and the way that you organized and collaborated with each other is in a folder structure historically. So you have all these folders, and those folders live in this kind of like this mystery box that's out there that we'll call a server. And the way that you interacted with your colleagues is you would either email a document to them, or you would place it in some shared file structure like you see here, and then everyone would just go to that structure and interact with it. So you typically store those documents in a shared drive, public drives, maybe even a thumb drive, and that's how you pass those documents around, and you would normally go through your network like you see right here. And this is what you do to navigate to your individual files, is you go and you open up one folder, go to another folder, then go to another folder, and you finally find the folder that you're really looking for, and then you go in that folder and you start to look for the documents. And that's typically how the organization of content happened. But now things are a little bit more efficient, especially around the search area, because before you could go into a window like you see here, search for a particular document, and the results would only give you documents based upon the title of the document. And typically this process was pretty slow too. You'd see one of the familiar icons here, meaning that you're sitting there waiting for your search results to be returned and hoping that you're able to find the content or document that you were looking for. So what's changed is that now we introduce this thing called SharePoint, which allows us to be much more efficient in what we do and how we interact with our colleagues. And the way we do this is we use Internet Explorer, a web browser. And that's really where SharePoint's application, the end user interfaces with this environment is Internet Explorer. And the great thing about it being Internet Explorer is I don't have to be on my company laptop connected to a VPN network in order to get access to certain documents. You can go out to any Internet Explorer enabled device that has that, go out to the website and then interact with items within SharePoint. Simply open it up, type in the address of the site that you want to go to, and then you're going to be off and running after you enter the credentials that you see here for your particular organization. And this is the interface that you're going to see and you're going to start to interact with SharePoint. And it's really a great way for things to be organized in a central location that everyone can go to. You can depend on them being there. If for some reason, let's say I forgot my laptop, left it at home, or for some reason something happened to it, you can immediately go to any other machine, bring up the website and you're off and running with the ability to interact with documents and those type of things here. So this is kind of an out-of-the-box website, but you can do a lot more to make your websites much more attractive. This is a 2007 version of SharePoint. The 2010 is much more aesthetically appealing out of the box, as you see right here. And so with this site, you can see there's document libraries, calendars, discussions going on, a lot of different things. But you can even take that SharePoint site and even brand it for your particular organization. So in the example that you see right here, this is an intranet for the National Parks Association, and they've really branded the site to represent who they are as an organization. But the fundamentals of what happens within the SharePoint site still remains the same. It's just that it's branded and it looks wonderful, as you see right here. So I want to make sure that you understand that you don't necessarily have to stick to an out-of-the-box look and feel that you see right here. The interaction that you can have in the site can be a very rich experience if that is determined. So within the site there are different levels as far as the architecture of how SharePoint interacts. So you're probably familiar with any public-facing website that you navigate to. There's a home page, which we call the site collection, and then there are all these other sub-sites down here that you can determine what's going to happen. So these may be departments, and then under this department site you may have human resources, finance, and then within each of those department sites you have individual pieces of content like calendars or pages or lists or libraries that live under those individual sites. So what does the SharePoint site look like? So let's look at an out-of-the-box SharePoint site that if you went down and downloaded the foundation version or free version of SharePoint, you could get off and running with a site that looks just like this. So I want to show you some of the few common elements of what's going on. You can place a logo up in the top left-hand corner. So for instance, your organization can have the site branded, at least with your logo up in the upper left-hand corner. You'll have a page title on each of the pages that you see. So this one says, "Welcome to your site." And then there's the search functionality, which we're going to get into here in a few minutes. And the search functionality is really a powerful tool within the SharePoint platform. So if you would go and try to search for a document within a file structure that you're accustomed to doing today, you're limited to just the file name. But what SharePoint actually does is opens up each individual document, indexes every word within that document, and then returns the results right there within the search area. We'll dive into that here shortly. You also have the Site Actions menu. So the days of having to know a lot of HTML knowledge in order to create a website are kind of gone. When you interact with SharePoint, everything's done within this interface with the website, within Internet Explorer or any other browser that you're using. And the way you get in there and start to modify things is within the Site Actions menu that we see up here in the upper left-hand corner. And that gives you the ability to add content to the page, change images, change the title, add documents. You can do a lot of different things once you have that exposed to you. And then down here in the page content well is where you communicate all of your content. So in the main content well here to the left, we have the document libraries, we have an image over here on the right-hand side, and some quick links over here as well. So you can kind of control how the content's displayed on the page and where it appears within the content well. Navigating around the site is very easy. There's a global navigation bar, so as you expand your site, different links will appear in the navigation right up here dynamically. So you don't have to worry about manually adding those. As you add additional sites to your site collection, they automatically appear. There's a breadcrumb trail, so as you dive deeper into the site, the breadcrumb trail allows you to figure out where you came from. Just like in stories as a kid, you talk about going through the forest, you leave a breadcrumb trail, that way you figure out where you came from. So in this example, we started at the home page, then we went to the event page, and then we clicked on something called upcoming events. So this tells me how I got to that place. And if I want to start to backtrack, I can click on events or Suskitech to go backwards. And then over here on the current navigation, or what we'll sometimes call the left-hand navigation, allows you to see what all the content is below this individual site. And all these elements change dynamically. You don't have to worry about adding these things in manually. So as you build content and add discussions and add lists and add libraries, the left-hand navigation automatically adjusts as you create that content on the site. So it's very user-friendly. Talk a little bit about lists and libraries. You know, in the previous context, we were talking about a file structure on a shared drive. When you go to view documents in the SharePoint site, this is what you see. You see a document library, which will have a title that tells you what the library title is. And then furthermore, you can see within the library all the documents that are available. So in this example, we have 4 documents that we can see. And there's a lot of data that comes along with these documents because I can immediately see that these are Word documents over here on the left based upon the icon. When was it modified? And more importantly, who modified it last? So there's a lot of content that's here and tagged within the document library. So kind of to do a comparison, in a file structure that you would use in an older way, you would organize these things based upon folders. So I'd have the department folder, then I would go to human resources folder, then I'd go to the forms folder, and that's where I would find my individual document. In SharePoint, the way you would organize that is you would have a department site, for instance, human resources. And within human resources, they would have a document library called forms, and the document would live there, which is much more of an intuitive structure. And the ability to get to that individual file is much more user-friendly. Security is much better, and we'll show you here in a minute how we do that within the search interface. So a few benefits to SharePoint. It's very easy to navigate. It's just like you browse websites today. It's a very user-friendly experience. There's a very tight integration with Office so that all the Office documents can be integrated within the site, and we can kind of extend that functionality into SharePoint as well. And even within 2010, you don't necessarily have to have all of the Office documents installed on your local machine in order to look at them. So for instance, let's say you go home to your home computer and you just bought one at the store and brought it home. You probably don't have Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all that installed on that machine. In this scenario, it really doesn't matter if they're installed or not, because once you bring up the website and you open up those documents, you're actually viewing those documents right there within Internet Explorer or the web application. So it makes it very user-friendly to be able to access these documents from anywhere. And we talked a little bit about search and being able to find documents very quickly. Because at the end of the day, you're storing documents in a central location, and you and your colleagues need to be able to find that information very, very quickly. And of course, there's all the collaboration and version history that goes along with SharePoint that we're going to get into in just a second. So the core functionality of SharePoint is built upon, let's say, lists and libraries. So lists are just pieces of content containing rows and columns. Just like you make a list to go to the grocery store to keep track of things, you'll do the exact same thing within SharePoint. And then libraries are just simply containers to place documents in, whether they're Word documents, whether they're JPEG, zip files, whatever a document is, you can place those documents within a library and help organize those. And the way we keep those organized are within what we call content types. And a content type is just a way to classify content. So everyone is probably familiar with an Excel spreadsheet. This is just a list of different columns and rows. So in this example, these individual pieces of content that we're classifying are like salesperson, or what we've highlighted here, unit. If we take all these individual pieces of content and group them together, that will be what we'll call a content type. And where we use the content type is in this scenario where we have the title of the document. So this is what we would look at in the Excel sheet, but if we're in a SharePoint site, you'll see here that we have a document library, which we see that here's a folder with the name and then the title. You can classify a lot of other pieces of metadata within each of the documents that you have out here. So you're not limited to just title. You could have the type of document, meaning is it a contract? Is it a policy? Is it a procedure? So you can classify all those pieces of content. And you can even add other pieces of metadata. So you can imagine a calendar where you have a start date, end date. Maybe you want to add another item like location. Maybe within a particular document, like we were talking before, document type. Let's call it a form or a standard or documentation. And you can kind of continue to go down through the process of classifying documents. You can search based upon these content types, which is very helpful. And we can even roll up content based upon a content type. So for instance, if we have a document library based upon contracts and you want to look at the most recent contracts, you can create what is called a roll-up. And that roll-up is just a little web part that says, show me the last 3 or 4 or 5 documents, and it will automatically roll those up into a view for you. Now, one of the big things is lists and libraries within SharePoint that we've been talking about. Now, historically, you would go and you would find a file in the folder that you see here. This is the new view within the SharePoint site right here of all the folders that you have access to. So you have the title, and you can also filter on that title. So if I'm looking for a particular title and I know what it is, I can filter the list from A to Z or backwards and go and find the title of that particular document right here. And if you have documents out there that may have similar titles or the same title, you can even find those here as well in that filter. You can even filter the document types, which is very user-friendly. So you can imagine in the old state, if you're in a library, there's just hundreds and thousands of documents that are out there. You can come in here and filter. So I know the document that I'm looking for is a PDF. I select that filter, and all of a sudden, all I see is PDFs within that individual library. And you can change the views. So if you wanted to look at a view and specify a view, meaning I only want to look at documents that Dennis has created, you can do that here. Or you can set up a view to say, show me documents based upon the last modified date. Because most likely the document I'm going to look for has the modified date that's most recent. And you can create those right here very easily for yourself or even for global users that are out there. So it's very easy to create these views to sort and filter and kind of slice and dice and organize all these documents that are out there. You can even group items in an accordion fashion that shows a little plus sign so that you click on the plus sign to expand or contract all of those documents. And you can even do something like creating a view that's just for your documents that you've placed out there. You don't want to be mixed in with everybody else's documents. So let's talk a little bit about search. For the search interface, you can go and search for different areas of the site. We'll call these scopes. So we can search the entire intranet or maybe only a portion of the intranet that we want to. You'll go in and type in your search, and then your search results will come back just like you would within a Google or Bing experience that you see right here. So we did a search for this word, the results that came back, we saw one document that contained that, and you'll notice that the words that came up weren't within the title, they're within the body of the actual content, and it'll even highlight that. You can then click on the document and go in and view it from there. So we typed in a very generic phrase that when I did this, I didn't think it would show up, and then on the particular site I did it on, it actually did show up. So it's a great way to find content. And you're really trying to take that like Googlify or Google experience that you have at home into your workplace. So you can imagine when you're at home and you go to, let's say you want to change the oil in your vehicle, you go to Google, you type in the name, the year, the make, the model, oil change, and you get a lot of really great content very quickly. Within SharePoint, you're going to take that exact same concept and experience into your intranet or even public-facing website. And so you can be very specific with the terms and get the content that you need very, very quickly. And you can even go into the advanced search settings and start to type in phrases or change the filters so that you're looking for a specific author. So there's a lot that you can do within the search interface. So in this example, we can come in and pick author, description, name, the created date, a lot of filters that you can use within the search settings. So let's talk a few more minutes about search, or not search, but version history. So one of the great things about SharePoint is the ability to control versions in the site. Now the first thing you're going to do is publish a document out there on the site and have it live in the SharePoint environment. But you may want to go out and modify that document at some point and have that be the central location. So what we're going to do is check that document out. And once we check that document out, it's just like going to the library, getting a document or a book, you now have possession of it. So the file is then checked out to you. Only you have the ability to edit that file, so anyone else that comes and views that document sees the previous version of it, and then you're now off and editing your document. Once you're done editing that document, you're then going to check that document in. Once you check it in, it's then unlocked so that other individuals can go out and interact with the document and see your changes. There's a really nice feature in SharePoint that allows you to control the version history, so that the first time you create a document, it's going to be whatever the document name is, and it's going to be in draft version, so like 0.1. And as you make changes and save them to the site, it'll be 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And once you publish it, meaning you want all the other individuals who have access to the site to see it, it's then going to become version 1.0. And users always see the latest published version, but you can continue to go out and make minor revisions to that, meaning 2.1, 2.2, until you're ready to publish that out for end users to see it there again. And you have the ability to roll back and go back and see those previous versions, so that there's a lot more flexibility control when you have those documents stored in the website. And you know that all your users are going to always see the most recent version. So instead of emailing a document to an individual, you would place a link to the document in the email, and you don't have to worry about sending out updates to tell folks, here's the latest document. Every time they click on the link and open the document, they always see the latest version, because the location of that document never really changes. The version may change, but the location never changes. So you can always go back and revert to old changes or older versions if you want to, and you can also see who made those changes along the way and be able to keep some notes about what changes were made. So there's also, along the collaboration side, there's an approval process that's very, very handy. So you can imagine an individual goes out and creates a document, and then maybe you have to have a few folks approve that document before it's sent out and published so that everybody in the organization can see it. So maybe it's a new policy or procedure that Human Resources is putting together, and before they can publish it to the company, certain individuals have to approve it. So the great thing is SharePoint has an approval workflow that allows one individual to go create the document, publish it. Before anybody can see it, individuals in the approval workflow will approve that document. So we'll see over here, we create the item, the content author creates it, they check it in as a minor version. Once they're done modifying it, they then publish it. And the approving individual has a choice to make. They can either deny the approval, have the individual, meaning the content author, go back and continue to make changes, and they'll go through this process over and over until they get to the final version that will be approved. Once they get to the approval process or the approved document, then the approver will approve it. The document will become approved, which creates the major version and is published for everyone to see. So it's a great way to control the approval process so that content authors, yes, they can go out and create content, but they may not be able to publish it out there for everyone to see. So you're kind of automating this process. That way you don't have to move these documents around, and there's a good checks and balances in place for this process. As far as security and permissions, there's this parent-child relationship, and I won't get into this too much, but everything kind of inherits from the parent. So we'll start here at the home page, and then we have some sub-sites, and then we have some sites that are further deeper than that, maybe a document library and documents within that library. And as long as there's that parent-child relationship, everything inherits from the parent. So if I can see the home page, I can see these documents down here further in the structure. So everything's unlocked at this point as we go through the structure. But if we want to, we could lock things down a little bit and secure this one document that you see right here so that only certain individuals can see that one document, but everybody else can see the other two. And SharePoint automatically security trims out any documents that you don't have access to see. So if I didn't have access to see the third document here, I wouldn't see it. Now, you can even do this for a particular site. So I can set the security so that I cannot see that one particular site. So it would automatically security trim out any other sites that I could not see. All right. So that's kind of the general overview of what we're doing here with SharePoint. So we'll kind of open it up to questions now at this point. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on SharePoint in general, and we'll kind of go from there. So here in a second we'll unmute things and see if anybody has some questions from here.
Muted.
And Julia, I don't know if you can unmute this or not. I don't think we're unmuted yet.
Unmuted.
Does anyone have any questions for Terry?
All right, so it sounds like we don't have any questions at this point, but if you do have any, feel free to send me an email or give me a call at the information here, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much.